Healing while b-hopping and how Respawn tried to remove it from Apex was one of the biggest dramas of early Apex. A lot of you probably know that you can still do it with speed boosts, some of you may know that and how you can do it even without speed boosts, and pretty much no one knows that you can use the magic power of walls to also still do it, which is based on an old Source Engine speedrun technique, and while experimenting with it, I found a variation that makes it way more useful in Apex. I'm using this video as an opportunity to make the best Bhop heal guide that's currently out there. This includes all the methods we currently have. If you just want to know about the new wall method, you can use the chapters for that. But then you will miss a lot of knowledge I compiled for the other chapters. Also, B-hopping is used as a term for slide hopping, which is with a crouch, and actual bunny hopping, which is standing up. So for this video, when I say B-hopping, I mean both. When I say bunny hopping, I specifically mean the standing up version. In Apex you sprint at a velocity of 299. You walk at 199, but once you start healing you slow down to a very dreadful 104. So what did people do? They figured out that if you slide hop, you can easily overcome the speed limitation of healing and even continue at basically sprint speed. Respawn didn't like that, so just a few months after Apex released, B-hop healing was nerfed. And now repeated jumping while healing applies a heavy speed loss, which meant we needed new methods to B-hop heal, which leads us to the best and easiest method, Legend Speed Boosts. I will talk in detail about what method to B-hop is best and how to actually do it while healing in the next chapter. I just wanted to have mentioned that Legend Speed Boosts can overcome the speed loss Respawn implemented. Octane is the champion of doing this, while stimming it's pretty much old B-hop healing. But Bangalore, Bloodhound and even Mad Maggie all benefit from their speed boosts. What I would benefit from is if you checked out today's sponsor, War Thunder, the most comprehensive vehicle combat game ever made. The more than 2000 vehicles are not just simple shells, but have incredibly detailed customization and progression systems, and can then suffer damage to these individual components instead of using a simple hit point system. The damage then gets displayed in the damage X-ray model to you and your enemies, making it easier to know what you did right or wrong. When I first started up the game, I thought I would enjoy flying planes the most, but actually gravitated towards the tanks. They just feel so meaty. And knowing how to use the damage model to one-shot someone is great. War Thunder does not just cover one particular part of history, but over 100 years of combat vehicle development, from the 1920s all the way to the modern era. The best part is, War Thunder is not only available for free on PC, but on PlayStation 4 and 5, and Xbox One and Series S and X as well. And if you register using my link in the description or pinned comment, you'll get even some extra goodies like vehicles, premium features and boosters. So check out War Thunder today. Let's talk about B-hop healing without any legend speed boosts. I don't want to tell you to simply do this one particular way, because there are multiple aspects to B-hop healing that you can and should combine with each other, use depending on the situation or your skill level. Those aspects are: number 1. There's actually a difference between slide hop healing and bunny hop healing. Healing while slide hopping can slow you all the way to 48 if you mistime your jumps, cause that's healing crouch walk speed. Bunny hop healing will only ever slow you to 104, cause that's healing walking speed, as long as you keep holding forward. If you don't hold forward, both can slow you to a complete stop. Number 2. There is a delay between hitting heal and starting to heal together with the speed loss. So hit heal and then hit a slide jump, not slide jump and then a heal. Number 3. The first few jumps while healing will still keep a bit of speed. Only after repeated jumps will it slow you all the way down. If you want to speed all the way up, you should subscribe to the channel for more movement videos. Number 4. B-hopping has 2 different methods of direction changes, with a forward input and without one. With a forward input needs tighter circles with your mouse or right thumbstick. It's almost like you're overturning compared to the direction where you actually want to go. Without a forward input, you pretty much go where you're pointing. So without a forward input, it's easier to steer, and with a forward input, we have less risk to have our speed reduced to 0. No matter which you choose, try to only do circles in the beginning. It becomes clear fairly quickly when you're moving your view fast or slow enough for the optimum speed. Only after you have a feeling for the correct turning circle, try to switch directions back and forth. Without healing, both of these can be used to gain more speed than hopping in a straight line. But if you use these methods to direction change, while healing and your turning circle isn't precise, you will not get the additional speed from the direction change and potentially even lose speed. On controller, there is no distinct sideways, forward and both. It's all one smooth transition when it comes to the angle. But there is a sharp transition between being able to only walk and sprint. And the equivalent of forward plus sideways on M&K is exactly here, right after being able to sprint. So when I say with a forward input, I mean this. When I say only a sideways input, I mean this. Please keep this in mind. This will become very important for the angles of wall hop healing. A little side note, Horizon is easier when using direction changes because of her passive. So while she doesn't have a speed boost like the other legends I mentioned, she makes it easier to maintain speed with direction changes. Number 5. You will get a speed boost when landing in a slide. That's called a jump slide, and on repeated jumps is responsible for slide hopping. Number 6. The speed loss of healing does not apply to a slide. Only jumps introduce a speed loss. So Bhop healing down a slope out of a normal slide is never a good idea. Just jump sporadically to change direction with airstrafes. Unless you start to slow down to walk speed, it's just not worth it to Bhop here. That changes when you have huge speed. Then it is worth to Bhop here, cause the jumps are far enough apart and being in the air is better than losing speed due to the friction of sliding. Down slopes this is especially true. On flat ground it mostly comes down to feeling and experience. To give you a general idea, when landing from a big shallow grapple, it is worth to Bhop here. When landing out of a jump pad, it's not. For the speeds in between, play and learn. And number 7 would have been that doing it backwards is easier or gets you more speed, but I could not confirm that. In all my testing, I did not gain any more measurable velocity or felt that it was easier. I suspect that going backwards simply messes with the speed perception of people. Feel free to test around with it. If it feels easier to you, do it, but it seems to not be a universal truth. Before we now think about how to combine those 6 fundamental aspects of Bhop healing, I want to point something out. Your ultimate goal should be consistency, because no matter if you do it crouched or standing up or with or without a forward input, if you use direction changes and you mess them up, all of them have the potential to be slower than just walking while healing. So don't hold yourself to the high standard where you switch direction every 2 hops to be even faster in a straight line during the entire duration of a Phoenix kit. Cause in reality, Bhop healing without a legend speed boost in most cases is about getting 3 to 6 hops in and switch direction once or twice to get into cover to pop a battery. I personally like slide hop without a forward input the most, as many other movement players seem to do. It feels like this has the most potential, cause you land in a slide, which gives you partially the speed of jump slides, and turning is easier, which makes it better for going in a straight line. Your hitbox is of course also lower and harder to hit than doing it standing up. But the most important part is I'm consistent with it. But if I start out of a standstill, I often do it with a forward input. The same goes for having to switch direction rapidly around tight pieces of cover. And if the servers are a bit bad, I don't use a crouch and do it standing up, which leads us to some random tips. Sometimes the servers are just trash and timing your slide hop even without healing becomes horrible. For practice, just restart the fire range or come back the next day. But for actual games, this is exactly why I wanted to split Bhop healing into different aspects, instead of telling you one fit-all method. So you can build a base method that is consistent for you, but also adapt in-game. Try to already hold a sideways direction and turn before you land for the first time. This can help in preserving as much momentum into the first few hops as possible. On PC, when you switch direction while in the air is very important. Try to switch direction right before you're about to land. If you switch directions right after the jump, you'll experience more lurch, which pushes you to the side and can mess you up. I hope this gives you a good foundation of Bhop healing. But what about that weird ass wall hop I mentioned? Well, Apex is based on the Source engine, and in other Source games exists something called Wallstrafing, where strafing into a wall gives you more speed than sprint or walk speed would. This exists in various forms in Half-Life, Portal and CSGO, and depending on the game there are also variants that use jump inputs. The basic variant of wall strafing does not seem to exist in Apex. The fixed speed for walking or sprinting will always override that, and the friction from the wall even makes it slower. But Wallstrafe Jumping does exist in Apex. So while strafing sideways into a wall and bunny hopping, you will reach higher than sprint speed without ever holding forward. The reason that isn't the big news is that slide jumps alone are already faster, and if you include wall bounces, it's not even a competition. But we can't do those while healing. So if you now heal while doing Wallstrafe Jumping with slide hops, you can be 60 to 70% faster than healing and walking. Somehow the speed from Wallstrafe Jumping partially overrides the heal slow. The secret ingredient for Wallstrafe Jumping is to look away from the wall. If we trust the in-game compass, it seems about 8 degrees for that one is the sweet spot, which tracks with info on other Source Engine games. You're supposed to get even more speed if you decrease the angle the faster you go, but this feels negligible in Apex for Bhop healing. I first learned about this when Danvari posted about it in the Apex Roadout subreddit over a year ago, and then honestly forgot about it, even though I tested it in game and found it pretty damn interesting. Until Tuscanos, a Titanfall speedrunner, messaged me that wall strafing still exists in Titanfall after I tweeted something about potentially hidden mechanics in Apex. And that's when I remembered that wait, I actually investigated this. Why did I never make a video about it? Well, here we finally are. So Wallstrafe Jumping in Apex isn't new based on when it was discovered, but will certainly be new to the majority of people learning about it only now. And the variation I found for Apex also doesn't seem to exist in other Source games. For that variation, instead of only using a sideways input, you also use a forward input and look into the wall instead of away from it. At first I thought this variation was actually faster, but turns out I just needed more practice to really fine-tune the angle I look away from the wall with the original version. The sweet spot angle for the variation with a forward input seems to be 35 degrees, which is a lot steeper than the 8 degrees when looking away from the wall. And here it becomes important again what I said about controllers. The 35 degrees only count for the exact mix of a forward and sideways input. It will change with other angles and might even be slower. I can't confidently check that because I'm too bad on controller. So even though my method isn't faster, I find it way easier to keep contact with walls while using it in actual in-game situations. For multiple reasons. Because the terrain is not always flat and some walls have curved bottoms and both can push you away from the wall. When you start a Bhop heal before you reach the wall, the angles match much better than flicking away from the wall when using the variant without a forward input. And when going around corners or rounded walls, it's also way easier to stay attached with a forward input. And because my method also isn't slower, I can't really see a reason to use the variant without a forward input. I would like to call this new method of Wallstrafe Jumping in Apex wall hopping. Because the basic wall strafe itself doesn't exist in Apex and slide hopping and Bhop healing are already very well established terms, I feel wall hopping is a great name. That it's shorter also helps. It's still a variant of Wallstrafe Jumping. Wall hopping is just a name for this particular version in Apex. The best way to train the angle for it is to do it on long continuous walls to get a feeling for it. So do it in the fire range to not be disturbed, or on all these walls in Skyhook in World's Edge and this one in Broken Moon. There are certainly walls like this on the other maps. We just don't have them in game right now, so I can't find and show them to you. Use the compass to find the direction of the wall and then angle 35 degrees into it. But only use this to find the initial angle or correct yourself in between. Try to actually find the best angle by feeling the speed and develop that muscle memory. Because in game you won't look at the compass for mid-combat Bhop healing against random objects. And even though training is easiest on such long walls, cases where you will actually be in a situation where you will have to pop a Phoenix kit on such a long straight wall will be almost non-existent. I'm thinking of wall hopping as a way to be used in combination with what you now know about the other Bhop healing, be it to gain distance or simply avoid damage. I will link to an unlisted video in the description where I go into all the nerdy math, speed calculations and comparisons between different Bhop heel methods that back up what I'm claiming in this video. There you will also find the link to today's sponsor, War Thunder. Go download the ultimate vehicle combat game today with my link and enjoy the over 2000 vehicles for free on PC, PlayStation 4 and 5 and Xbox One and Series S and X. I hope this video actually manages to be the best Bunnyhop heel guide out there, so you can now take what you learned in it and become a Bhop heel god yourself. Follow me on Twitter, check out the Apex Warlords movement subreddit and channel on my Discord server, subscribe to this channel and see ya. Bye!